Good to see you once again, my own very David J. International.
Thank you, my friend and my brother, Reverend Dr. Shagun.
Yeah, I hope we will have an amazing conversation today because we want to talk about something that everybody, even a blind man, could see. And even though he doesn't have the physical eye to see, but he can perceive the disorientation and the disorganization, and you can literally feel the impact of things completely out of place in our society. And that is what we'll be talking about today. So I'm glad to have you here once again, Kunle, to have this conversation together on our leadership blueprint. This is podcast 12. This is a major milestone. It was just like the thing was not going to move forward, but we give glory to God because step by step we are getting closer to where we actually intend to take this podcast to.
Yes.
One of the things we are doing with this podcast is we are not driven by money. We are not driven by fame. We are not driven by how much views that we are going to get from it, but we are more driven by maybe one or two, three, four, five people that really have the transformation agenda for our society, particularly the African society. We're just looking for those people who really have that mindset to change things. And we believe that if we provide this kind of platform, that might just be the beginning of that larger transformation that we are looking for in the society. So, Kunle, today we want to talk about leading a dysfunctional society out of the world. Isn't that a wonderful topic?
That is a very interesting topic. And just to your comment earlier, I just want to say thank you for, of course, having me on again. Doing this together means a lot. And as you said, the motivation is very clear and I believe it's noble.
Yeah.
And to one of your points, some of the best conversations that I ever had are those that are had with few people who are intentional on transformational change. So we there's no we're not perturbed that the views are not in thousands yet. That would be a later consequence. But the important thing, like you said, is that we're having the conversation, and people with the same transformational mindset will connect and are connecting. So thank you once again.
And I'm really even happy now because it's like there is now another wave. Maybe I can call it a wave of leadership seminars, leadership podcasts, leadership teaching. I'm beginning to see that wave across Africa now, particularly in Nigeria. Maybe it's starting from Nigeria. I'm beginning to see a lot of people coming on board, talking about leadership, which for me is a welcome idea. It's
It is
important
indeed.
area, and the
And you
most
see, Shagun,
important thing is to get things done, which is what
Shagun,
leaders are known for.
absolutely. The point here is that, see, this is why you have to credit pioneers,
Yeah,
people who venture out, who stick their neck out, who
yeah,
seem to be slightly ahead of the curve. Now, when they begin to venture out and take that bold step, because the idea is just starting to um, board, people may not necessarily pay attention, but
mm,
a time comes when the idea begins to filter through,
mm,
and then you see that it begins to snowball into something bigger.
mm,
So that reminds me of some of the work that our predecessors have been doing all this time, the likes of John Maxwell, the likes of Dr. Miles Monroe in his time. I remember many times that Dr. Miles Monroe would travel the length and breadth of Africa,
yeah,
doing a lot of leadership training. In Nigeria in particular, he invested time across various business and governmental sectors. And I think now that conversation is becoming pervasive, is now getting to more and more people. Everybody's now thinking, okay, leadership is for us. We're part of that conversation. And that's a good thing because it means it's not now sitting in the ivory towers or in the sacred halls. It's coming to the marketplace, to the shopping floor. That's a good thing.
now, another point I want to raise, sometimes ago, I made a statement. I said, in Africa, we see a lot of miracles because that is mostly our preoccupation. We are always looking for miracles. We are always wanting to see miraculous things happening.
Mm,
That is not to say that uh, miracles should be scorned. That is not the point I'm trying to make.
yeah.
What I'm trying to make is that uh, if we can slightly change our mindset from just seeking miracle and try to understand the process, how we can create the miracles ourselves, I think that will be a worthy thing, a worthy pursuit to
Mm,
in life.
mm.
What do you make of that?
No, you're right. And we can always use the Bible as our reference when we're discussing these things to put it into some context. Remember the children of Israel, when they were traveling through the wilderness, everything was miraculous.
Yeah.
Water came out of rock. Sometimes
And
water was
top of
frozen.
heaven,
Yeah, manna came from heaven. Fresh baked food was supplied. Even even the weather was miraculously, arranged for them. But at the tip of getting to their promised land,
mm,
we were told that the manna ceased.
yeah,
The reason is now that now you are getting to a place of settlement where you're going to settle in and you're going to learn to build a functioning society.
yeah.
You're going to learn to work things out. You're going to have to use your resources, your intellect, your time, and your people to build a nation that you want to see according to the mandate of law that's been given you. So it was not time for God to be giving them free supplies. It was time for them to partner now, right? And harness all of society to build the kind of nation that they wished or they wanted to see. And that's always the pattern, isn't it? That you first you're spoon fed, even with our children.
Yeah.
At the point when they are children and a dependency state, you spoon feed them, you give them everything. But a time comes when they say, "Daddy, I want this." You say, "Okay, you know what? Go and pick that thing up. This is what you need to do, and then you do this way, then it works." That you are saying dependency is not sustainable. You have to learn to also become a builder to get to a point of independence and then progress to interdependence.
Mm.
This is the way where people, this is how people grow, this is how societies grow.
Thank you very much. Now, if I'm hearing you correctly, uh, when it is time to build, it has to be something that we have to agree that we have to build.
Mm,
And failure to not get to that point where you have to determine in your mind that you have to build and that you must build, that is when chaos begins to set in. Because if you have been used to getting things through miracles, through supernatural means, and now
or through charity.
or through charity, or through charity, and now the responsibility comes on you now to be the manufacturer of those infrastructure that you have been enjoying, things that have been produced freely before now for you, and you refuse to take that responsibility. And everybody assumes it is everybody's responsibility. And when you think it is everybody's responsibility, it is actually what you are saying is it is nobody's responsibility. If you don't take personal responsibility, if I don't take personal responsibility, if each individuals don't take personal responsibility, and we feel it is everybody's responsibility, what we're invariably saying is that it is nobody's responsibility. And when we leave it at that, that is when the disorientation comes in. That is when this disorganization comes in. That is when things begins to go haywire. That is when the society runs wild. And then we begin to wonder what is happening in this place. Now, Kunle, how can you make us understand what we mean by dysfunctional society? How does it look like?
It's a deep question you've asked, and we're going to, I'm sure, I'm going to repay back the favor, and I'm going to turn it back to you to add a few more things to it. But let me just start off that conversation, like you said. Now, dysfunctional, that's a key word. Something that is dysfunctional is in a state of disrepair.
Mm,
It is not working as expected.
mm,
So, what makes things not work as expected?
mm,
Fundamentally, if you look at this from a manufacturing perspective,
mm,
it means that you have your requirement.
mm.
This is what we want. This is what we need to happen.
Standard requirements.
Our requirement, which is what measures quality.
Mm,
And for some reason, the standard requirements or the expected outcomes are not being produced. They're not manifesting.
mm,
Now, in the case of a nation, or society,
mm,
we can begin to break it down to a few things. You can look at several aspects, key components of a nation. When you say a nation is functioning well, what do we really mean?
mm,
Uh, from an academic sense, you're talking about maybe five key areas.
mm,
Governance.
mm,
If a nation is functioning well, then what you're saying is you have good governance or a functioning government. We can break this down. So if government is dysfunctional, it means that government is not functioning as expected.
mm.
And the way you measure that is the outcomes
Yeah,
that you expect to see of a functioning government are not produced.
yeah.
Let me quickly build on this point and I'll come to, we can deep dive into each of them. They're also talking about the concept of sovereignty,
Mm,
a sovereign state.
mm,
Now, if the nation or society is not sovereign, measurable by ability to have its own authority to function,
mm,
its autonomy to
mm,
have that independence of function. That's not to say that you don't welcome input, but ultimately, the the government must have, or that nation must have its own autonomy
mm,
to pursue its goals, its objectives, and then the agency to do that. Agency meaning that somebody is not deciding for you. Somebody, you are not like a client to another country that's saying this is what you want to do. You're not just taking instruction from them and say, "Oh, okay, that's what to do. Okay, we're gonna do it." You're not a house help as a nation.
Mm,
Okay, sovereignty. Then you're also talking about territory, and by that you're literally referring to territorial integrity. Now, if for some reason territorial integrity has gone pear-shaped,
mm,
then that is part of dysfunction.
mm,
Then another component to also look at is that of population.
mm,
And when I say population now, maybe I can talk about in two key respects: citizenship and residency.
mm,
Because in the population, if you have people that are truly citizens of that nation or society,
mm,
then you have people who are resident, they are not citizens, but they have the legal permission to live in that country. So they may be business people who just come in. They may be maybe temporary students, temporary workers. They may be, visitors, tourists, and so on. But but ultimately, you'd have the populace of that society. Um, but if for some reason you cannot determine what your population is, the measures, the process of determining citizenship is compromised. And you cannot even tell who your residents are. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they are up to. Your borders are porous. You don't know the agenda of the people that come to your nation. And particularly if they now come in and cause trouble, then you say this is not working well. Or even if you have all these people and you can identify them, but you cannot truly cater to their welfare, then your population is not in good stead. So there is a state of dysfunction. Then maybe one last one I can add to that is the question of identity, or what we call shared national identity or common national identity. Now, if in a society there is so much splinter where everyone is pulling in totally different direction, and everybody's just tearing everything apart
mm,
at the seams,
mm,
such that there is just utter fragmentation.
mm,
There is nothing that brings us together. There's something that binds us together. There's nothing that we share that we say, oh, we are all working towards this. We're all fighting for this. Everybody's interest is so splintered.
mm,
One example I can remember, it was a time when the nation state of Israel in the Bible, they got to that point when they said, "To your tent, O Israel," meaning there's nothing that's bringing us together
I'm
anymore.
not moving anymore.
We're tired. Now,
Things are falling apart.
exactly. Remember that book,
Yeah, Achebe.
Things Fall Apart.
Yeah,
Now, when that happens to the populace of a nation or
yeah.
a society, then surely there is dysfunction. So I've used those five fact components to just describe it, but we can actually deep dive into each of them and say, oh, okay, what is actually happening here? But that is, if I've tried to use some of the academic or some of the political science ideas to bring it together so that it's easy to discuss. What do you think?
Yeah.
What are your own observation about a dysfunctional society, and in particular, what are the things you think may be responsible for a nation to get to that point of being dysfunctional?
Mm. Thank you very much. I know you've said a lot, but I just want to be a little bit more practical here by citing specific examples that would shed more light to how a dysfunctional society operates. Now, I'm going to state about three specific examples. There are many more. Uh, I know our viewers can even say more on. If they want to even help, they can help, even uh, put on the comment section and just mention a few ones that comes to their mind. Now, I remember some times ago, I needed to to get my transcripts uh, from Boston University, where I had my Master of Theological Studies and my doctorate degree program. I needed to get my transcripts and forward it somewhere. And within 15, 20 minutes, I was completely done with whatever I needed. I didn't even need to go to the school. I didn't even need to know anybody. I didn't need to call somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. All
It sounds like you are showing off on your school now.
What did you say?
It sounds like you are showing off on your school.
No. Well, I'm just trying to
I'm joking because I know what it could have been like in some other environment.
I'm going to go there too. I'm going to go there too. So I'm just trying to state the obvious so that we can know how an organized society functions and how a disoriented society, how they also function. Now, all I just needed to do was to go to the website, look for to the office of the school, make phone call. I didn't even have to make phone call. All I just needed to do was to get the email address of the place, send the email. Within 10 minutes, I got a response back. Within few minutes, I was given where I needed to, the information I needed to be able to process the whole thing. And within 20 minutes, I was completely done with requesting for what originally is my heritage. I didn't have to lobby for it. I didn't have to beg for it. And it didn't have to cost me a fortune. With just $8, which is just for postage, with just $8, I was able to get my transcript transferred to another place. Now, I have the same similar experience when I needed to get my transcript from Nigeria to also do something here in the US.
I was going to ask you to say that was a bit of discretion, but it's okay.
Yeah. I will do that. So I have to, connect here and there, connect here and there. I have to know somebody who knows somebody and who also knows somebody. And it was just going on and on and on like that. And what I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, I was totally stressed out. It's not the cost that is the problem, but the amount of stress, the trauma. It can even be traumatic. You going through that painful process of trying to get what should necessarily be given to you at just at your own demand. I had to go through that stress. Eventually, it was given after several months. I could even say it took me about a year plus to even be able to process it, because it was just until I was able to connect to the guy at the top that I was able to get that thing done for me. It was very painful, having to go through that process.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I don't want to break your thought necessarily, but what did you observe when so giving those two examples?
Yeah.
One, you went there,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 buttons on online.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
one cumbersome to just what so from as an individual, as a citizen, how do you describe that experience? How do you relate that to the concept of being valued as a as a citizen of a society?
Now, what I can say in one institution, I was I was valued to be a member. They valued me to be a member of the community who should be supported, who should have the best that he can ever dream of in life. Whereas on the other institution, I was just a mere commodity that could be that they can get something from. They are looking at me as an opportunity to get something from this guy now that is in our net now at this point in time, that he needs this thing urgently, and without this thing he cannot progress further in life. We have to do as much as possible to get the best out of him. That is the difference.
And you know the reason why I asked that question,
Yeah,
and this goes into the heart of
yeah,
what we mean by a dysfunctional society, or the contrary, which is a functional society.
yeah,
That it seemed to me that as the very core of it,
yeah,
the life,
yeah,
value,
yeah,
the aspirations, the progress, the happiness,
yeah,
the quality of life
yeah,
of individual
yeah,
citizen is at the very heart of it.
yeah. You know, when I published my Facebook, without notifying me, without telling me about it, Boston University, the faculty, I would call it the faculty, the school that I went to in Boston University, on their own initiative, helped me to publicize my book without me having to know. I only stumbled on it by chance.
So, which means they see you as a continuation
Yeah,
of the legacy, of the
they are
progress of
proud of
progress.
what their products.
Yeah. They see they see that you are intricately linked to them.
Exactly.
Mm.
Now, another thing I want to say, because I don't want us to rush this. We really need to get to the bottom of it. Now, another thing is this. Now, in Boston University, they also believe that I am a kind of uh, I am a kind of somebody who represents what they stand for in the community. And so whatever they have to support, they are willing and they are glad to do it, to be able to support that. Now, not to digress too much, let me also state another example so that we don't keep on just talking about that alone. Another example of how a dysfunctional society function is that when I was still in Nigeria as an undergraduate, something happened. I think that time we were no longer together. You've gone on your industrial apartment, so I've moved to my new location, and I was just there was some armed robbery attack in the area. Those days when uh, cult guys were also combining armed robbery with their cultism and all that. So, but luckily, I was able to escape from the area and quickly trekked to a nearby police station. For me, I was performing my civic responsibility to let the security personnel to know about what is going on in the society, so that they can put a stop, or perhaps get those guys who are involved in those activities, get them arrested. I went to the police station. I went to report, this is what is happening in my area. Could you please come and assist and all that? You know, what they asked me, they said, well, if I want them to go to the place, that I will have to be the one to
To become a temporary police.
and then I have to lead the way. Well, I don't have any gun. I don't have anything to protect myself. You guys have what it takes. You have been trained for this. And you're asking an ordinary citizen to lead you into what you have probably maybe they even sworn and hold to be able to be recruited into the police force. They asked me to lead them. And I really felt that pain, that this is not a society that is working. And I could feel the pain. I almost wept for my country, that this is not what a nation should be. And that is another example that I will.
Before you give your next example, I hope you're all, I'm sure you are, but just for the sake of our audience, I hope that you can begin to note some key elements:
Yeah,
people,
yeah,
processes,
processes.
responsibilities,
Yeah.
how things are meant to function.
Mm.
Just an element that I'm hearing from what you said. The first example,
Yeah,
and now the second, in spite of the specific example,
yeah,
I'm still seeing the same thread.
yeah,
So I just wanted to kind of highlight that, so that that is part of how we're discussing this forward, and now people are also hearing it. Because I don't want people to get carried away by just, oh, this is an example, oh, wow, and either laugh or become upset by it, but to note the essence of what we are saying in this conversation. Please carry on.
yeah. There is this other example. This is also very funny. Uh, it was I was talking to a guy here in the US who also happens to come from Nigeria, and he was in one of these paramilitary groups that local that this state government usually form just to keep law and order within the states. I don't know what they, such as last man or whatever they call them. So he was working under that group, and he was stating to me what they were doing when he was with them. That sometimes when the government says, uh, just take 5,000 from anybody who commits this offense, what the law says, at least the law of the state is that they should get 5,000 from them. At the end of the day, these guys will not take the 5,000. They can ask the guy to pay as much as maybe 50,000, which is not going to go to the government. Of course, it's going to go to their pocket. You know, I'm just stating this because these are some of the things that causes chaos. And some people seems to enjoy a chaotic society. Of course, some people will benefit from the chaos, but the majority of the people are not going to find it very palatable. So,
100%.
yeah. So these are some of the ways a dysfunctional society operates. My wife also has her own experience. She has a school in Nigeria and a nursery and primary school that she has spent a lot of money to establish. And this is something that she wants to do to help the society. Now, to get the school registered, the government will say, pay so money for you to get this approval, which is normal. We are not contesting that. Of course, whatever the government asks them to pay is always very reasonable. So you can't query that. But then the the Grigoris, I would say, that are in the corridor of power will say, okay, after paying the government zone, you are also paying this. Without this, we are not going to act. We are not going to do whatever you ask us to do. And if you don't do it on time, if you pay so and so money, and this time lapses, before you know it, this person will be transferred, and if another person's come, you will have to start all over again. So they are putting you in tight, difficult situation. You have to look for the money by all means to be able to get something done that will benefit the society. These are some of the things that are happening.
And honestly, as you're highlighting all this, I'm just hearing exactly the same. I'm saying because I'm trained to look at things from a design thinking perspective, from a systemic point of view,
Yeah,
right? And I do a lot around processes, and I can just pinpoint people, process,
yeah,
um, and of course maybe even systems
yeah,
and all those connected things, and I can see you are literally saying the same thing, even though the manifestations
yeah. Are
be
in different settings, contexts. Yeah,
exactly. And that is so, which means we can strip all these things down to the components, which is why when I was starting out, I used those components as a way to discuss it so that wherever we go, no matter how they manifest, no matter how they transpire, I can give an example. Although I don't want to sound like I'm bashing um, my fatherland, but
no. We
yeah,
have to state the obvious. If
yes,
you don't
yes,
state the obvious, we cannot provide solution.
100%, 100%. Years ago, I went to a hospital. I'm not going to name the hospital for the
Yeah,
just. I went to the hospital. We took somebody who was an accident victim to the hospital, and obviously the whole thing, honestly, it still haunts me when I think about it deeply. Getting to the hospital, number one, electric power was not available.
in an hospital
Yes.
where people's lives are supposed to be saved.
Well, I'll let you figure out the rest. Now, now, getting to the hospital itself was a battle because even though the ambulance was blowing the siren, there wasn't that much care about making the way for the ambulance to go through. Because if you know, in some environment, once an emergency services start to blow siren, every vehicle has to clear off the road so that they can get to their
Mm,
destination at the earliest possible. Whether that is if the firefighters, whether it is a police, whether
mm,
it's an ambulance, you need to get off the road.
mm,
It was a tug of war forced together.
mm,
Getting there, electric power was out. Then, once the the victim was helped to the hospital, and with the eagerness to say, "Oh, please help this person," everyone just looked like okay, so now they said, you know what, go and buy these materials, this disposable materials like cotton wool, plaster to help.
they don't
Huh?
have.
Well, whether they had or not, we couldn't tell. But out of the desire to help, we quickly rushed down to go and buy those things. By the time we got there, okay. But then looking around, I then realized why this wasn't any serious case as far as the personnel were concerned.
Mm,
Because right there, I noticed someone who had like a first degree fire burns. You can see the
mm,
person's body really pale. And the person did not have a bed.
mm,
Let me not describe the condition because it's going to sound too gory.
mm,
And So we would need to put up listeners' discretion's advice. I noticed somebody who was taking a drip.
mm,
The person was having to handle the fluid, the
mm,
liquid plant, why? So, in other words, they must have thought that what you're saying is not that serious. I mean, when obviously there are more aggravating cases all around. That night, of course, we had to stay up all night right there in the hospital just to see that this person was catered to.
mm,
Thankfully, it was resolved, but not without a lot of drama.
mm,
What is my, and I began to ask myself, so again, bring it back to the people.
mm,
Why did the personnel, why did they feel disenfranchised?
mm,
Why, what happened to their empathy?
mm.
Were they always that way? Or something had happened to them? And maybe they too have become so much desensitized because of the pain they have suffered over time to the end that they just didn't care anymore.
Mm.
Maybe their condition of service was not great. Maybe they too have suffered it as a consequence of that. And, you know, but all of this still paints the picture that we're talking about. That you could say that at the time, maybe it has changed now, but as at that time, the health care system was in a dysfunctional state, obviously.
Well,
Otherwise,
I wouldn't say it has changed much because some few years ago, maybe about 3 years ago, I lost one of my younger brother uh, to the both hand of I think it was the cancer of the pancreas or something like that.
sorry to hear about that.
All we were doing, all the I won't mention the name of the hospital, uh, just just not to cause some chaos. Is one of these teaching hospitals. So all they were just doing, all the money we kept sending was just they just keep doing tests. They just keep requesting for this test, for this test, for this test. And obviously, those tests are not done within the hospital facilities. You will be asked to go to a particular center. Probably maybe those testing centers are owned by some of the doctors, or so they send you there, you go and run the test, thousands of naira, you run the test, you come back, they're not doing anything with the test. The next thing they ask you, go and do another test. You keep repeating tests, and you are just doing tests, and the person who is dying is left uncared for. All they are doing is just doing all manners of tests that is not yielding, that is not leading to anywhere. Now, so this makes me to now want to believe, maybe you will agree with me or not, I don't know, that it seems to me that a state of dysfunctionality is a form of culture. Can we safely say that a
It,
dysfunctional society has
okay,
embraced that dysfunctionality as a way of life?
that's an interesting point that you've raised because culture, if you're going to define culture,
Mm,
culture is the embodiment or the full manifestation
mm,
of what a society or an entity or an environment has become.
mm,
In other words, culture is like the when something is in full bloom,
mm,
when something has now is the outward manifestation.
mm, mm.
So so in that case, culture is really just the visible,
Expression,
the,
expression.
the expression, exactly that's the word, the expression
Mm,
of
that belief, that values,
of the values,
beliefs,
of the beliefs,
worldviews,
of the worldviews, of the behaviors, of
behavior,
it's the sum total.
work.
Yeah, is the sum total of what has been normalized in a society.
Mm,
So culture is the more like the last stage of it. Is the
mm,
but you have to walk your way back and say, how did that become norm
mm,
and expressed in this way? Then
mm,
we go back and say, oh, wait a minute.
mm,
And this is why when I was using those, I was talking about those five components. I first used the word governance.
yeah,
Now, what is entailed in governance?
mm,
Basic function of government is the codification of values
yeah, into loss.
into laws
Mm,
and the enforcement of that law
yeah,
so that order is created. You now
yeah,
have a semblance of this is what is orderly.
yeah, in the society.
And what is orderly dictates the norms of society.
Mm,
To say this is normal. When you drive on the right side of the road or on the left side, depending on the country you are in, this is normal.
yeah.
If you do something different, we think you are not normal. We have to go and check.
Yeah,
First, we have to stop you
yeah,
because you're going to introduce what is the opposite of order? Disorder or chaos into society. So we have to stop you
mm,
and then address that errant behavior because it is not normal for somebody in
mm,
the right frame of mind to behave that way.
mm,
Now, so order and then normal. Then, when normal is perceived and understood in society, it drives behavior,
mm,
actions. And as that becomes transferred, and everybody knows it, because everyone is interconnected in society,
mm,
everybody thinks person A, B, C, D
mm,
thinks that's the normal,
mm.
and it drives action. And we even self-police that, oh, when somebody now drives in one place, we look at them with the eye like, are you okay? Is
Mm,
everything okay with you?
mm,
Now, as we entrench that and self-police, and the government also enforce it,
mm.
then a culture is birthed. Like, oh, in that country, they drive correctly. Or if everybody ignores it and everybody just say, no, I'm going to take that wrong place. I'm going to then you have a
Mm.
culture of lawlessness, of
Yeah,
disorder
yeah,
ensues. So culture is the is like the full when that thing has now become it's now in full bloom.
yeah.
So that's why I say I agree with you, but we need to break it down so we see how that journey actually occurs. And isn't that true of everything that we need to talk about? So that's why I'm saying government is key. That so the component of that society as the governance. So government and governance. Because when we say governance, governance it goes beyond just the officers of government.
Mm,
So there are officers of government, yes, but governance is in itself a practice
mm,
of ensuring that law and order is upheld, maintained, executed, educated in a society, all with the goal of creating a culture for that society.
mm,
So these are very, very strong elements of what we've been talking about. And I can even say that you say when you have that, you can see the direct influence on the population, whether you're a citizen or resident. You
mm.
see, think about it. Whether you are a citizen of US or just a resident, it doesn't matter. You
Yeah,
still have to drive the right way.
exactly.
So the law applies to you equally.
Mm,
You cannot now decide to drive facing the traffic, regardless of who you are,
yeah.
you'll be taught to something must be wrong with you. That's what they're going to think.
Mm,
And they're going to stop you in your track and say, no, you cannot do this in this society. You're going to create chaos. Now, but when people are accepting of disorder, then you have a state of dysfunction.
mm,
Or when more and more people are now changing their behavior in order to create disorderliness in society, then there's dysfunction.
mm,
And when those things are not challenged and not, no and corrected,
mm,
or you have a means of getting around it, then evidently there is dysfunctionality.
mm,
The the effect of dysfunctionality is certain pain. It's the fact that everybody then have painful experiences which you call bad or poor quality of life.
mm, mm, mm,
So
mm.
look at the example you gave. You wanted to get your transcript, which is your academic record. It belongs to you.
It belongs to me.
It's your property. Now, you did not need to struggle for it because you already worked hard in that university.
Exactly.
And the university understands that.
Yeah.
And because they are not thinking about just you, they are thinking about your children. They want your children to come to that school. In fact, they are
Exactly.
thinking about your grandchildren. They want your grandchildren to come to that school.
Exactly.
So they need you to have a good experience so that
Yeah.
you can say, oh, my matter, I want my children to be there.
And
And
do you know my son is already dreaming of going to the same
ah,
school?
you made my point for me. You made my point for me. Why do you think? No, think about this. Now, you describe two societies. Why do you think they go to great extent to ensure a particular quality of experience for everybody?
Mm,
Is because there's one thing I want to say.
mm,
That is called reputation.
mm,
They believe that everything is tied to their reputation.
mm,
So if anything wrong happens, they will swoop in and try to quickly address it. Why? They've worked so hard for maybe decades or hundreds of years to build their reputation.
mm,
So they cannot afford to destroy that reputation
mm,
because it just doesn't affect the individual they are dealing with. It affects you and everybody you know, your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren.
mm,
So they fight to protect it. But when a society cannot even think in that way,
mm,
something is not right. It means that that society is only living for the moment.
mm,
It's only living in a short-sighted manner that
mm,
I just want what I can get now. It means that, no, see, if we are to be, if we are to look at this from a psychological point of view, it means that the psyche, the mind of the people has been so degraded to the point that they can only just live for the moment.
mm. They
It
can't
means,
plan for the future.
yes, it means that the people have been programmed to be in a desperate state
Mm,
whereby they just think now is all that matters. What
mm,
I get now is it. Whatever is damaged is damaged. I don't care.
mm,
People don't have that bond, that sense of ownership and protection of society or of things that they should indeed care about.
mm,
The damage has gone so far.
mm,
And then obviously it's a state of dysfunction.
mm,
What happens after that is the real problem.
mm,
That everyone begins to experience pain at
mm,
every turn. You begin to see pain, 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 pain.
mm,
Everything is painful. Everything is difficult. Everything there's frustration. There is, oh, you know what? I give up. Everything, and you begin to see society, people in society, even using their mouth
mm,
to badmouth the nation
mm,
or the society because all they get from it is pain.
mm. Now, Kunle, let me ask you. Maybe you have more than one, but I will state mine after you're done. Maybe it would even be the same thing we're going to say. Do you believe or do you think there is a cause for a dysfunctional society? Do you
Mm.
think something is actually responsible for it? Or what
Evidently,
are the things you think are responsible for
there is no smoke without fire.
it?
Someone said,
Mm,
you know, things work because people work them.
mm,
So again, for the sake of structuring this conversation,
mm,
I still go back to those components.
mm.
Number one, because the foundation of society is law.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So once law is either not promulgated or established, codified,
Mm.
or it is codified but ignored,
Or some people are above the law.
or I will sum it all together by saying you do injury
Mm,
to law.
mm,
Once you do that,
mm,
you have to understand that what you're doing is not just,
mm,
you're not getting away. You are destroying everyone and everything in that society. Think about this way. Imagine somebody who has a huge ship, an ocean liner that is like the size of three football field, and somebody takes a nail and goes to somewhere in the hull and then punch a hole in the nail.
mm,
That hole does not need to be big,
mm,
but as long as there's a hole there, it's a matter of time.
mm,
The salt in the ocean will do its own work and corrode that hole. It becomes twice as big.
mm,
The waves will batter it, it becomes even bigger.
mm,
Time and the effect of wear and tear will continue to batter it, it becomes even bigger still.
mm,
With time, that shape will go down.
mm,
Why? You've done injury. And at the time, it was just a tiny injury. But in the course of time, it compounds and the effect is strong. So, what are we saying here? What we are saying is the cause of dysfunction is fundamentally our attitude to law. I would say that there is no nation on earth that does not have its own set of laws. I doubt if there's any.
There's none.
It is what people do with law that
And how they
differ.
treat it.
How they treat it.
Mm,
Is it upheld or you are making law fall to the ground? In some cases, some people say, I outsmarted the system.
mm,
Oh, I got away with it. I used my levers, my influence.
yeah.
But maybe if we are to be factual, what you are saying is, I have just done an injury to
Mm,
the law and to the nation.
mm,
That is the better way to put it so that we can truly understand what is going on.
yeah.
That the seeming smartness, the
Mm,
seeming ability to get away with it, it's not really getting away with it.
mm,
It's like a child that went to steal and say, yeah, I got away with it, didn't catch me. Well, in time, we'll see. So, but the point here is this: law is at the heart of it
mm,
because law is what society is built on.
mm,
And and when injustice is done in a nation state, you are literally tearing the fabric of society. I was in thinking about this, Shagun. I gave this a long thought, and I think, oof, man, this is not an easy thing to discuss.
mm,
But think about it this way: nations are founded and established on law.
mm,
Nations are, in fact, built on the foundation of law, justice, and equity. So they're like three things that are constantly striving to be in balance. And that balance is so delicate that if any of them is out of balance, it's like a
yeah.
tripod stand.
Yeah.
It falls.
Yeah. It false.
So there is that constant tension
Yeah.
for this to be balanced.
Full
It-
balance.
it's also like you can also look at it like that scale,
Yeah.
that scale,
Yeah.
that 2 pound scale.
Yeah.
They are so sensitive that anything you put on it, even a feather,
Yeah.
affect the balance. So it's and yet what a nation state wants to be is to have a state of equilibrium.
Yes.
And
To
it was
balance
so
it.
hard. to maintain that equilibrium. So every act of violence against law
mm,
is the undoing of the very foundation and the fabric of the nation state and the
mm,
society.
mm.
Now, when anything at all, I don't know if you remember, there was one time, maybe it was when we were in first year secondary school, we did this. I think we were doing like keyboard and we call it lattice. The edges, we call it lattice. I don't
Yeah.
know if you remember that.
Longitude,
Yeah, yeah. So we can just say,
longitude
for
and
the sake of,
latitude. Is it
so,
longitude and latitude?
no, when you build like any structure like a cuboid or a cube,
Okay,
yeah, you call the edge the lattice because that's where they join together,
okay.
isn't it? Or you can even say the seams, the where they join together. When a substance begins to weaken at its edges,
Mm,
what happens? It begins to disintegrate.
mm,
When clothes begin to weaken at the place where you sew them at the seams, what happens? They begin to come apart.
mm,
And that collapse that you see ultimately is actually a correction of the weakness
mm,
in that lattice.
mm.
And the reason why you have that correction is because everything in life that God created must find stability.
Yeah,
Everything must come to a state of rest.
right.
So if you agitate something on one hand, it's going to say, let me find the balance to correct that agitation.
Mm,
So that's why it is possible to heat up the polity. It's possible to heat up a society. You can literally set that society on fire
mm,
when you begin to throw in things to agitate it.
yeah,
Now, the bond, the connection between those lattices must be strong enough to hold the component parts together. And that is what in building people call structural integrity.
mm,
If you are building a structure now, you know that everything is measured.
mm,
You can't just go and say, oh, I like this metal, let's go and bring and put it there. No, everything the building is calculated.
mm,
The foundation too is calculated. And as I say, law is foundation of society. So anything that society must sustain must have been built into the strength of the law.
mm,
If the integrity of the structure of a building can no longer hold,
mm,
a collapse is imminent.
mm,
There is no, you cannot look for a miracle, you can't pray it, you can't, there's nothing. Look, it is a process, it is a law, it's a principle. And the reality is this: every structure is constantly and continually seeking this so-called structural integrity
mm,
and equity of all its constituent parts.
mm.
So think about it. You used three examples. One is educational, happens in the educational system, isn't it?
Yeah,
The other one, the one I use,
yeah.
health sector. The one
Police,
say that again.
the one that happened with the police.
Exactly. That is in the, should we say the defense or
Yeah, defense, yeah.
yeah, or the I don't know,
Protection of life and property.
yeah, law enforcement sector. So let's just use that as a just to keep it simple. But it doesn't matter what sector it is, but because once
Another one in educational sector. Well,
exactly once one of them is imbalanced,
yeah.
there is no way it doesn't drag the other ones down too.
Mm,
And this is the essence of governance,
mm,
the maintenance of law and order
mm.
in the face of the entropic nature of chaos. Because entropy,
Entropy.
everything tends towards the state of chaos unless you say, I'm going to fight it and bring order.
Exactly.
So if anything that is left alone,
Yeah.
you don't need to work at it, it will disintegrate.
Other leaders will come with setting.
It will be disorderly. So the fight we are fighting all the time, the reason why we have law is to say,
You know
no,
that.
let us draw this society back from this chaos that is impending if we do nothing.
Yeah.
That's why law is there. So I'm hammering on this. because what we are doing, we are not just social commentators.
Mm.
We are observing, we are analysts, we are also preferring solutions.
Yeah.
Because that's our interest. Is we benefit nothing by saying, "Oh, it's chaotic," and then go into a state of glee. No, no, we really want to see transformation. That's why we're talking about this thing, and we cannot depart. There's no way to get away from the foundation of law. Now, I can begin to extrapolate and say, okay, what then does that mean?
Mm.
Law, citizenship.
Mm.
That is, what is the value of the citizen?
Mm.
See, we've talked about this before. The-
Yeah.
what, these are like the building building blocks. Law,
Mm.
the citizen, um, and even if I stop at that, what does a citizen mean? What is the value of that citizen? It has to be clear in the minds of everyone.
Mm.
It's a reason why some nations will deploy their assets of great value to rescue just one citizen.
Mm.
There's a reason. What they are saying is this: constitutionally, the right of this person to life and to rescue must be protected at all costs. If it means that they're going to have diplomatic dispute for the sake of that person, they will do it. Why do they do that? It's still the law says every individual must be protected. You must do everything it takes. The state. So the law, the citizen, the state, these are all elements that can begin to talk about. So if we are asking a question, what causes dysfunctionality? Well, these are the elements. At the base of it all is the law.
Thank you very much for that elaborate insight that you've given. I remember our very first podcast, which is on leadership. What is leadership? I remember the way you started, uh, which was a quote from Dr. John C. Maxwell. Uh, the question that every follower love to ask genuinely from their heart, from the leader. Number one, can I trust you? Can you help me? And then, do you care for me? Those three questions, if you look at it very critically, you will agree that those are the questions that forms the basis of our interaction with leadership in the society.
Hmm.
And once that trust is broken, if you can no longer rely on the system, if the system has now started to do injustice to people, the system does not dignify people, it does not justify people, it does not respect the dignity of people, it does not uphold the basic standard that should be maintained in the society. If those trusts are broken, if there is no confidence in the system and in the leadership, and just like you said, when the law is broken down completely, that is when you see a dysfunctional society manifests in its fullest expression.
I want to ask a question.
Yeah.
Back to your experience with Boston University. Do you think there isn't a possibility that someone in the faculty that day might have had a very bad experience that morning? I.e., maybe somebody's husband said, I'm not doing again, we're divorcing. Or somebody might have had maybe some unfortunate news about a sickness.
Yeah.
Do you think those are nothing that could be happening with those people there?
I can even say probably maybe the person that was even answering my email would even be going through difficult times.
Okay. Why then do they still maintain their service to you in spite of their what could be a personal difficult situation? It's a rhetorical question. My suggestion is this: there is something that drives them beyond just their personal circumstances,
Uh,
which is there is a standard that must be maintained. That standard is not just a flimsy standard, it is actually tied back to law. Because then if they violate you, they're not just violating you as an individual, they're also violating your right that is protected by law. So ultimately, it boils back down to what the nation says that as your entitlement, your right as an entity who is dealing with an organization, regardless of that kind of organization, that certain right must be maintained to you. And that right is backed up by law. So even if somebody wanted to abuse you because the person is feeling bad, he cannot afford to do that because you can actually take them to court and you will win in the face of law. Can you see? I'm trying to highlight with the place of law.
mm,
Now, this is why you can see now that law, in fact, go and check the establishment of any organization.
mm,
You see it is constituted in law.
mm,
Every hospital in law,
mm,
every government in law.
mm,
In other words, this is why it sounds like I'm repeating it, but I'm just emphasizing to make this point that the attitude of
mm,
people to law is what makes society function.
mm,
The moment, see, we can buy the best infrastructures, build the best. We will, with our own hands, also collapse them if we don't value law. And isn't that what is happening? Because you find that maybe some societies they are very good at quickly building something, building roads, building bridges. But at the same time, because there is no value for law and the citizen, with their own hands and their own attitude, they actually destroyed that which they have built. It goes very quickly into a state of disrepair because what should make you behave or act in the right way in spite of your feelings, in spite of your needs. Somebody can say, "Oh, I stole because I have need." Okay, that's fine. But everybody can do that in every nation, even the so-called very good nations. Everybody has a tendency to distort. Entropy is a state that affects every human being and every society on earth equally. The only issue, the only deterrent is that people say, there's something that will not make me go that way because the consequence will be too great for me. So
yeah.
they in Yoruba, they will say they put their hand into the cloth.
Just like, in spiritual terms, just like the Holy Spirit is the restraining force that is preventing evil and to eventually submerge uh,
Absolutely.
the life that we have as we know it today.
The presence of light does not mean light darkness does not exist. It's just that darkness has now say I cannot function here. I've been curtailed. And how do you prove it? You just remove that light,
Yeah,
it becomes black straight away.
exactly.
So darkness did not leave.
Yeah,
It just could not function.
it was restrained.
Restrained. And I like that word you use, restrained. So that restraining force,
Yeah,
everybody, everybody restrains himself
yeah,
because they know that there is something that says, hey, there will be pain to you personally if you do not do that.
yeah,
And that's the point I want to make based on what you just said.
yeah. I know all over the world, particularly in the US, Canada, UK, Australia, maybe Japan,
Middle
uh,
East.
Dubai, you have a huge diasporic presence of Nigerians all over the place.
Mm,
Now, can we say, or is it safe to say that the presence of these amazing people, because they are doing amazing things where they are, well, we still have some unscrupulous element among them too. Can we say that this is a proof of a dysfunctional society? Because ordinarily, these are people that should have remained in the country and be part of the process of whatever that is taking
mm.
place within that country or within the nation.
I think what you said has a lot of factual elements to it
Mm,
because, I mean, it's a, yeah, we still have a huge population living in the state, in the country of Nigeria for sure. But there is no doubt a huge number of emigration.
yeah,
Now, and if you ask, and I'm going to use a story. Do you know that when we were, in fact, you probably would know the same thing. When we were very young, the pattern used to be that if you ever traveled abroad, maybe you went to study,
yeah,
but you are certainly coming back to your country to work. There was a sense of, he went abroad to study, but he's now back. My went who studied in so and so country is now back. He was trained in America, he was trained in UK, and then
that,
he's working for so and so bank, Standard Bank or something. There was it was a sense of pride that time.
mm,
So the concept of going away, staying away, and living away from the country wasn't so much of a thing that time. It was, in fact, it was seen as, what would you go and do there? Why would you do that?
mm.
Now, compare that society that time to what it is now, where people don't mind uprooting themselves.
And
Uh,
even abandoning all their achievements for
and,
you.
um, and you see people who have truly built businesses. They've built, to by every factor of measuring
Yeah.
success, right? They're successful people. For some reason, they say, you know what? I have to uproot myself. I don't believe people take these decisions lightly. I think in most cases, and I think this would go back to something that we discussed before. That again, you see, I said law, citizen, the
Mm,
state. There is this intrinsic and also explicit relationship
mm,
between the citizen and the law,
mm,
between the state and law, between the government and the law,
mm.
and the government and the state, as call it a tripod or call it a square, whichever one. And remember the lattice, the
Mm,
edges.
mm,
Once things begin to come apart
mm,
and that relationship is strained, agitated,
mm,
first, the manifestation is that people begin to complain, say, people want to agitate and say, let's correct it.
mm,
And hopefully, if it gets corrected, people say, now we have fought off that likely entropy. Say, things are okay now. But if they begin to fight and somehow it feels like they're not getting results, they're not quite winning, and the fight is becoming even costly and more costly,
mm,
eventually that strained relationship can become broken.
mm,
And when that thing is broken,
mm,
what really is broken is trust.
mm,
I just do not believe that the law can defend me.
mm,
I do not believe that the state
mm,
It's acting in my interest.
mm.
And even it is now affecting citizen to citizen. Now, the citizen that I'm dealing with, I'm now again not sure of that relationship anymore.
Mm.
When people's life feel threatened, what do? They want to try to move away from that threat. So it's that you fight it or you flee or you flee, fight, flight or fight. In some cases, people will say it's better to live to fight another day than to
Now
than to
to fight and end your journey there.
than to act like a very brave and bold. You know what they say? It is the ability to fight and run that makes a good warrior. So, and in some cases, the manifestation that we see is that of emigration. I do not believe that most people want to choose that path because we have seen a time when we were young when that was not the norm.
You know, maybe we should also say this, when we were undergraduates, we, both of us, we never thought it in our widest imagination
No, it was not in my thought at all.
that we'll go abroad to do things. But
No,
along the line, we felt probably maybe this might be an option, just like you said, he who lives to fight, I mean, how do they say it? Uh, we decided to go and then kind of re-strategize. What we are doing today was exactly what we had always wanted to do.
that's right.
But the condition, the environment did not allow for it. So we had to look for a means to get out of the system first, get our heart together, and then come and to face what we had always wanted uh, to face.
Because
So,
at the end of the day, a citizen is a resource.
yeah,
And put a resource in the hand of a productive person, that resource will be put to some good use. Put it in the hand of a waster, it will be the opposite. So the point I was making here is that ultimately people seek environment where they believe that they can thrive. And everybody is entitled to a good quality of life, frankly speaking. And that's what drives that. So when you see and to one of the proofs, right, that most people who have emigrated, some way that's not what they really would have loved to do
yeah,
in if things were okay, is because even after they have emigrated, they still keep talking about the nation they left,
exactly, exactly.
which means there is still a string saying
Yeah, the affinity is still
the affinity is still there.
present.
It's like when the children of Israel, they were in Babylon, and somebody said, "Come here, come and sing to us some of those songs."
Kunle, we don't have to do this.
Mm.
We don't have to do what we are doing.
No,
If we're already comfortable where we are, we can decide to say,
some
my
next.
God has escaped out of the hand of the fowler. But we thought, no, we are still coming back to effect the change that we have always talked about and always dreamed about.
Let me put it this way, Shagun. You cannot truly forget your heritage
Yeah,
because it is built, it is wired into you, into your identity.
yeah.
I don't care what nationality you can. You can say, "I'm now Australian." You will not forget the taste of egusi if you have eaten it before. If that's how you are trained from childhood, you cannot truly rewrite your identity,
Mm.
your heritage. You cannot because it is in your genes.
For example, in America, for example, what you have just said is our lived experience in America. In America, we Nigerians refer to ourselves as Nigerian American. A Mexican will refer to himself as Mexican American. A Anybody from a German in America will refer to himself as German American. A Japanese will refer to himself as Japanese American.
Yeah, because that's true heritage.
A Chinese will refer to himself as Chinese American. And you still see people still linking up to their original roots.
Absolutely. Because God did not make
Like
a
their
mistake.
new identity.
Absolutely. God did not make a mistake by creating us in all of the various nations where we hailed from. It is God's wisdom that did that. Now, so you can say that all the various immigration, all that, these are all temporary things. So which means we must then say, okay, look back. You see, when they say that when a child falls down, it looks ahead and keeps running. When an adult, part of what makes somebody matured and in adulthood is that when you fall down, you look back and say, what has happened? And that's part of what this is about. To say, okay, now if we don't like what we have, what is our obligation? What is the contribution we can make to say, let us in some little way influence change, to say how can we drive change, um, even if people think it's inconsequential, but how can you, even if it's just at first at the level of thought, begin to influence that change? And this is what this is about. And you know what, it's a matter of time. Ideas are the most potent forces in the world. When an idea gets into the heart and it is planted, even if it is the tiniest of all seeds, once you plant it, it grows branches. It becomes the biggest herb in the garden, and birds begin to perch on it. So, in other words, ideas have shelf life to the point that they begin to then grow and snowball and gain critical mass, where people begin to think that way and say, oh, wait a minute. When people begin to say, wait a minute, change is already happening, because what that means is that there's been an effective pollination in the mind. That's why what we're doing is important. That, listen, yes, we know that law is at the heart of it. We know that even the diasporian population, if truth be told, they really still want effective change, so that they can actually at least say, I have opportunities in two places at the same time. Yes, why not? So no, I don't think any Nigerians just say, I just want my nation to go to the dust. No, no, not at all. It's the contrary. And that is right thinking. So what we're saying here is this: change is possible, but not easy. And it's not meant to be easy, because to draw anything from disorder back to order is a tedious task. It is not meant to be easy. It is not meant to be a miracle. It is meant to be the hard work of effective processes, harnessing of people, of systems, of battle of ideas, to the point that changes begin to happen in little spaces, in small measures, and begin to gain depth. So it's not something that will happen a year. It's not even a matter of decades, but it is possible nonetheless.
Um, we are going to ask ourselves just two more questions and we call it a day. We've said a lot about the disorderliness, the disorientation, the disorganization within the society. Now we want to focus, because we're always mindful of not just stating the obvious. We also want to offer solution to what we think should be the way to go. Now, obviously, our society in most nations in Africa is dysfunctional. And I believe that there is a healing process that we can take to recover ourselves from this disorderliness. So I just want to ask you, how do you heal a dysfunctional society? what are the paths to take for the healing process of a dysfunctional society to come in?
There is a proverb that the ladder you used to climb
Mm,
is also the one you should use
mm, to come to descend.
to ascend.
Mm,
Of course, smart people will say just introduce another ladder or just tie a rope and dangle. But that's for smart people. For us who are simple people, we just say it makes sense that if you climb by yourself, put
yeah.
another, then use that lamp. Otherwise,
Don't
something else.
destroy the ladder.
Exactly. Don't destroy the ladder. So because you still need to use it another time.
Yeah.
So my point here, though, is if we part of why we're analyzing what might have gone wrong and how it went wrong is so that we can also see
Yeah.
that okay, these are also pointers to the uh,
Mm,
to the potentials of correcting it.
mm,
We've highlighted the attitude to law. Laws already exist.
mm. It's
It is
just the opposite.
it is the attitude.
Mm,
Attitudes are like variables.
mm.
If somebody can get away from something, they will try to get away from it. Even
Exactly.
the very best of nations.
Yeah.
And wait a minute, why do you think in even the so-called first nations, why are people presidents being jailed? I mean, recently, I think it was last week, it was on the news that the former is it president of France was jailed for 5 years.
Wow.
Oh yes, it was in the news. So why do you? I mean, you would have thought somebody who's the president. I mean, they should be above board. And also France of all. I mean, one of the big nations. There are no perfect nations, and people will do wrong as long as they think they will get away from it,
Mm,
even in any nation at all.
exactly.
So it is not that there are perfect people anywhere, really. But but somehow that system was able to say, even if you are the president,
Mm,
we still will not let you get by. We will not let you escape the consequence of that action.
mm,
So a president, some people will say a whole president. And
mm.
that's what we're saying. So, which means attitude to law will not correct itself
Mm,
ordinarily. It is always the deterrent.
mm,
Why are countries not just bombing themselves all over the place? It's because there's deterrent. Because, see, actions change when the cost of maintaining the status quo becomes greater than the alternative.
mm.
If what you are doing right now, the cost of it is not very high, you will keep on doing it. But
Yeah.
when the cost becomes higher than something else that you could do, in other words, there must be, you won't forego the current state unless it becomes too costly for you to keep doing it.
Mm,
And that's what we mean by deterrent.
mm,
And deterrent is happens because there's enforcement, just like you said. So if attitudes to law change, both on the side of the citizen as well as on the elected, or should I say, people in positions of leadership, to say now we will now enforce it. The executives and the so there's legislature, there is judiciary and executive. So when attitudes to law across all of those change, you begin to see a difference automatically. Look, there's no nation. Look, pick the worst nation you can think about.
mm.
We've seen nations that went to war for 20 years.
Yeah.
Rwanda is a good example.
Mm,
But I can tell you that if you want to pick nations in Africa that seem to have turned their fortunes around,
yeah. Who
Rwanda
has
is one of
it?
them.
Yeah, I know.
How did they go from killing themselves?
In 1994,
It's not too long. It's not up to 50 years.
yeah,
So which means
that was barely 20 years ago or
no,
30 years ago.
say 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Let's say 30 years ago. The Tutsi and the other ones, they were busy killing themselves.
Mm,
But now that is not happening.
mm,
Why? Is it because they're no longer the same people? Is it because no, it's because attitude to law has changed.
mm. Now, that reminds me that we have to come to a point where there has to be consequences for actions.
100%. I mean, there are no two ways about it. So what that's one by attitude. So when the ones who are to enforce change the attitude and enforce, and the ones who are supposed to keep the law says, you know what, I will because I know that the consequence of dealing this way is high. Let me just obey the law. The law does not need to change. We don't need to add more to the law, honestly, because in fact, the more you add to your bodies of law, the more complicated your society is becoming.
Yeah.
What we already have in our law books are enough.
To review and then maybe update them to meet the contemporary to be able to be relevant to contemporary issues.
Even if we don't change anything right now as we speak, and just say, you know what, the laws we have right now we enforce, society will change quickly. It will be like a dream of the night,
Mm.
honestly. Why is it that, okay, so you've seen people who perhaps in some African states are in charge of governance and all that. And you can see a sense of impunity, like, you know, I'm just going to do anything because there's no consequence. But when they go to some other countries, they just quickly behave themselves, right? Why does that happen? The same individual in 24 hours, you can see two different behaviors clearly. Is because one society says, no, we don't tolerate this. The other one says, it's okay, go ahead. So that's why I say attitude to law, not the law itself.
Because
Attitude.
the law is useless if it is not enforced.
Yes. If you say the law is to be trampled upon, then the law says I'm helpless. The law is truly helpless because it does not enforce itself.
Yeah.
So that's why that is key. That is key. Now, obviously, you see how that changes the the attitude of the citizen, of the people, officers of the state, and you see that the law becomes more valuable in our eyes. Think about this. So there's a law currently that prohibits theft and destruction of properties.
Mm.
Why is theft still happening? It's because the consequence of theft
Mm.
is not as high as the choice to not steal.
Mm.
When that consequence is so much higher, the bar is so high. Okay, let me give you an example. Do you know that in scriptures, the laws that God gave, you would think that God, maybe is God just bloodthirsty? Why is he saying when you do something like this, that person must be taken away from amongst the people, killed? For example, it says if somebody kills somebody else, that person too must be killed. Is God's after decapitation and just bloodletting? No. What he's saying is this: if you take somebody's life, and law must seek balance,
Mm.
the only equivalent action that we can take to bring the scale to balance is to also do the same thing to you, just like you did. Then you will have equalized it.
Mm.
Okay. But so is it then saying that, oh, I want two people to die? No, it's saying before you kill, think about the consequence so that you do not kill.
Because the law has stated that this is what is going to happen if you do
It's
this.
that's why true law, when it functions, acts as a deterrent.
Mm.
So
Preventive step.
yeah, it's a preventive. It's actually not a corrective, more of a preventive. True law, when it function. In fact, this is how you know a functional society. Law functions as a preventive element,
Mm.
not as a corrective element.
Mm. So that when we are making the law, we are looking at not allowing the situation to repeat itself.
Exactly. So when you hear an eye
As
for
a
an eye,
punishment for people doing the act.
yes. When you hear an eye for an eye, does God want everybody to now become one eye? So you have taken one eye, so then so you had now two people with only one eye. No. He's saying, see, if you know that the consequence of taking an eye is that your eye too will have to be removed, then you will value more the eye of your neighbor. Say, no, 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 no. We must not do any injury. So it's more of the prevention of injury.
Mm,
Law in its true sense,
mm,
that's what it seeks to do.
mm,
It's to correct behavior, it's to correct attitude.
mm. Not to punish behavior.
No, 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 no. That's why, see, let me read the
Look,
scripture.
I love that insight, and
Let me read the scripture. Because I
yeah.
know you're a theologian and you're going to use this in church. Psalm 19, verse 7. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul.
Wow.
The focus is converting, meaning,
Yeah.
see, it converts your thinking, your so what is the soul? Your not your will,
Yeah.
your emotion, and your intellect. So if I'm to convert your soul, it means I change you intellectually, I change you emotionally, and I change your will. So it means the law of God is so good that when you understand it, it makes you change how you think,
Mm,
how you feel, and how you act.
mm, mm.
So it is meant to act as a deterrent that, look at this. Do you want your eyes to be taken away? If you don't like it, then don't take the eye of another person.
Now, just to corroborate what you have said now, do you know that for for five 5 years now, for over 5 years now, I've not received any ticket from the police. And do you know the reason why? Okay, maybe when I started driving in the US, I received maybe 2 or 3 tickets from the police, maybe two, I think two. Now, since receiving those 2 tickets, have never received any after that. Now, no matter what, when I get to stop sign, I don't need anybody to tell me not to drive off because there is nobody looking at me. I just know that I have to remain there until the green light is on.
You have been
Without
converted.
anybody having to be there to enforce it for me.
Your soul has been converted. What did I say? Your intellect, your will, and your emotion have all been corrected. Have been converted.
Yeah,
That's exactly the function of law.
yeah, that's powerful. That's
I
powerful.
believe is a function of law.
Mm,
It is not for destruction. That's why Jesus said, I did not come to destroy life, but to save it.
mm,
You see that, and he said, don't think that I've come to destroy the law and the prophet. No, I've come to put them back where they belong in their right order. Because once you understand, you find that, oh God, so you don't actually hate us. You are not trying to restrict us. You are trying to restrain us from danger. You are trying to protect us from our natural impulses, our tendencies to entropy.
mm, mm. That's powerful. Now, Kunle, you've said a lot. And I have this one final question. If you have the opportunity, and I'm giving you that opportunity now, if you have the opportunity to lead our nation, Nigeria, out of the world today, what would you do?
I have to think long and hard to see if I'm going to accept that opportunity.
No, I'm giving you that opportunity.
Well, let's not, yeah, well, yes, I hear you, but let's not kid ourselves to think that it's a simple
Yeah, it's not. It's not so
a
simple.
simple to lead a nation. In fact, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown.
Yeah,
So we are not naive to
yeah.
think, oh, you know what, I'll just do so and so. No. But I'm going to flip that question on its head and say, if I was to sit across the desk
Mm,
of the president of my nation right now,
mm,
and I say, sir, I've come to help. I've come to give some advice. What will I say to a nation to head of a nation? Well, I'll put it this way. There are questions I will ask. Sir, where are we going?
mm,
Where do you intend to take us? You see, the question of where we are going has to do with vision. What do you see?
mm.
Jesus said it this way. He said, leave them alone. They'll be blind guides. And if the blind leads the blind, they will
They'll
fall
fall
into
into
the ditch.
the ditch. Mm,
So it is possible to be led by someone who is blind.
mm,
So in order to not to make an assumption, I want to ask, sir, what exactly are you, or ma, what are you saying?
mm,
Just to assure myself that I'm not being led by someone who is blind.
mm,
What do you see?
mm,
And then where are you taking us?
mm,
So I want to understand your
mm,
leadership motivation.
mm.
But equally important is this question, which is I don't know if you see this in the US, but I see it quite a lot here in the UK. Let's say you are traveling to somewhere that you don't know and you feel lost. If you just look around that area, you see this like they're like billboards that are put literally everywhere. If you look at that, that billboard is like it's more like a map of that area. Do you know one of the most useful information that billboard gives you? It will say you are here.
I
That-
was just waiting for you to land. I was
yeah.
waiting for you to land to say that I would have added to that question by asking, were we coming from?
No, see
Where
this,
are we now?
and that's fine. See, but that billboard does not really care where you're coming from
Mm,
because that's history.
yeah,
But it says, regardless of where you're coming from
mm,
and where you want to go,
mm,
you must know where you are
mm,
presently.
mm,
In other words, what is the assessment of our situation?
mm,
I want to sit across the president of my nation and ask that question. How do you assess what do you what is your insight into our situation as it stands? The reason is this: you may not be able to do anything about the past, and you may never get to the future you really want to lead us if the present is not properly assessed.
mm,
So let's understand the state of affairs. Where are we?
mm.
Of course, if I want to say, let's even say we can look at our heritage by saying where are we coming from, right? But so sometimes that can just lead you to despondency and say, things have gone so bad, and we can. So that's why
But
it's a
sometimes it's also useful
yes, of course.
to be introspective,
Absolutely. It can. So, and I'll tell you, my grandmother would tell me, when I was very young, the leg of a cow, they sell it for onini. But telling me that makes no sense to me, does not help me because number one, I've never seen onini before. I don't even know what it looks like. And onini is no longer spent.
Yeah,
It's already a retired coin. So
currency.
so even though it can be useful, right? But even more important is to say, what is the assessment of the
Yeah,
situation?
yeah.
Okay. That's my second one. The third one is look, given where you want us to go and where we are, hopefully we can begin to plot our map. But you know what? How do we get there? What is your
Strategy.
strategy, your plan to get us there? Let me even say what is your action sequence? How do you hope to realize this vision?
yeah,
And part of it to deep dive into that, I want to look at question of what do we need to get there?
yeah. What do we need to get
Our
there?
resources. What are our resources? And I will highlight one of those resources, people.
People.
Who do we have and
Mm.
who do we need? The same thing goes with our resources. What do
And
we
we have to optimize those resources.
100%?
Optimize them.
And how so the question of planning is about how
Mm.
and is a comprehensive, but I'm just summarizing this because
Yeah,
look,
yeah, it's good. Yeah.
yeah, now how what do we need and what do we need and what do we have then, but then there's also this question about, do we even understand our people?
Mm.
Who are we?
Who are we?
that that can answer part of your question of heritage, so that we know this is
That's
who we have been,
who
this
we
is
are.
who we still are, this is what we can be still,
Yeah,
so that we don't lose hope and think, you know what, it's not even worth fighting for these people.
that's
Because
it.
to fight for a people, you must know them and you must love them. That must be something that makes you love them, is because you have seen that they can be better tomorrow than they are today.
Yeah.
And then, when do we need to do what? What do you what are the milestones you see, and how what do you think is the reasonable milestones? Because we don't have forever to do everything.
Mm.
What can we do in your time?
Mm.
Let's not try to boil the ocean.
Mm.
Let's put our water in the kettle and boil the kettle.
Mm.
Some people try to boil the ocean and get nowhere.
Mm.
What can we do
Mm.
in your time
Mm.
that will make a difference?
Mm.
And then, how do we act on the basis of empirical, factual, unbiased assessment? It
Mm.
means, what data do we have? How do we use data to advantage?
Mm.
If I sit in front of my president
Mm.
or my leader, whether it is in the nation or a company, these are questions I'm asking. Then, to help further, I can ask, maybe some tools that I can deploy to it. In other words, based on some of those elements, how do we shape our inward leaning policy, the policy that benefit us as a people? And then, how do we relate with our external environment?
Exactly.
In other words, where we have both inward
Yeah.
and outward looking
Mm.
policies and relationships. How do we put ourselves in a position of advantage?
Mm.
I will ask Solomon Shegun, what is our USP? What is it about us that is valuable?
Mm.
What is it about us that is not easily duplicatable? What is about us that is rare? What makes us different from our neighbors as nations or other people in the world? What are our unique selling point? You know why I'm asking this?
And I can tell you, every Nigerian knows that. Every
Yeah.
Nigerian can tell you what we represent as a people.
But how do we what do we do with that? That's part of what I'm asking this question beforehand. You know, and you see, Shagun, do you know that I've seen this that happen all the time? Most of the time, most companies, when they want to do anything relating to IT, do you know who they think first when it comes to outsourcing the IT services? India.
Mm.
How has India positioned itself
Mm.
that when people are thinking outsourcing, the first nation they think about is India? I mean, I don't care what nation you think about,
Yeah.
UK, US, they
Yes.
all
You're
first.
absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
And maybe lastly, to finish off, what is the objective analysis of our position as things stand. What is working for us? What is working against us? I can go on to say, let's kind of understand what are the risks that we face. But you see, what I'm trying to paint here as a picture is that I want to sit beside my leader
mm,
as a partner,
mm,
as a force to help move forward, not as a complainer, because everyone can complain. But how many people can help? How many people can make a difference? I want to be a difference maker. And that's really is my value contribution. I understand that that is my unique selling point.
mm.
And that's honestly that's what I want to do. So I would say, President, remain the president, but let me help you execute.
You know what you have just said now reminds me of what I know you must have you did it also when you did your MBA too. Uh, how you can carry on with your business as a business owner or as a business executive. You know, you have to carry out your SWOT analysis.
Hmm.
You have to know what is your strength, what are your weaknesses, what are your
Okay.
opportunities, what are your threats. And then with the information you're able to get from those analyses, you can then make an empowered decision uh, to
Because,
chart.
because a country is just a big business.
It is. So you can then have an empowered decision uh, to find the path.
Let me qualify what I said. A nation is a big business that has emotive customers, very emotive customers,
Yeah.
very difficult customers.
And you cannot satisfy all of them. And
Oh, very hard to
that
satisfy.
doesn't mean you should get angry at them because
No,
they are
no.
right to be emotive, just like you
They
said.
will make you work every day. They will make you go to work and work indeed every day. You're not going to have holiday.
Should never be ignored or be avoided, like we see, or like we are seeing in recent times in Nigeria. Leaders are avoiding to having conversation with the public. They are avoiding, they are ignoring. That is not the way to do it. You have to engage and continue to engage. You have to build cohesion. You have to reassure. You have to restore the confidence, and you have to let them know that you are in for business.
And having said all this, Shegun, on his still lies the head that wears the crown. It is a
It's
most difficult job.
it's not
And that's why I wonder when people are clamoring for it and say, I want to, I'm thinking, do you understand what you're saying? So it is a no mean feat. However, it is doable.
it is. It
Just
is.
you need the right people around it. You need, and that's part of the challenge that when when having that layers
Yeah.
of leadership and management is complicated, it makes the work even more complicated. However, if the problem is hopeless, then we can as well all pack our bag and go home. But it is not hopeless.
No,
That's why we're still working at it. And people believe that that's why people are still saying aspiring. The fact that people are aspiring to the position means that it is not hopeless. And our neighbors tell us, be hopeful. I look at Rwanda and I say, yes,
yeah.
we cannot give up.
Oh, there is all. There is all. Kunle, we've had a very wonderful, amazing conversation today. It's like we shouldn't finish. We have almost spent nearly 2 hours having this conversation, and I think it's worth it.
Mm.
I'm glad to always do this with you
Same
because
here, my brother.
each time I have you on this podcast is always a banger, as they used to say in Nigeria.
Well, it's because
Another banger.
you are an expert at curating questions. You are, and of course, not just that, you're also a great conversationalist. Again, to me, it just feels like we were still those young men
Yeah.
just having our normal conversations,
No,
and
informally, we've always been doing this. We've always been doing this informally for many years. So,
yes,
whenever we have the opportunity to talk, it's just natural, it's spontaneous.
a very natural, spontaneous conversation that we have. So thank you always for for this opportunity and engagement. It's something that I cherish a lot. So thank you.
All right. See you some other time.
My friend, have a
Yeah.
blessing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bye bye.